Hello YouTube, this is a video talking about the Turbulence node inside of Toon Boom Harmony, so let's just get into it. This video is going to cover the Turbulence node and all the settings inside. This node handles the actual transformation of textures, so it's arguably more complex and harder to wrap your head around. I recommend watching part 1, which is in the card in the top right corner, before this video, to understand how Turbulence textures are generated. So first, to show off how this node works, I will create a rectangular gradient that fades from one colour to another. This will make it really obvious to see how the displacement noise is affecting the image when we change the settings. So as before, add a Turbulence node, and as you can see, it doesn't do much. So first I'll fly through the similar and differing settings within the Turbulence node and explain the new settings. Noise type and fractal are the same as part 1, with those settings affecting what noise texture is generated. These textures are black and white, with those shades telling it how much displacement should affect the image that it's being applied to. Frequency and offset are the same as part 1, where it affects the texture being generated. As a key point, it only affects the texture that is being generated. Evolution again is the position of time that noise is currently in. Evolution frequency affects how fast each iteration of noise in the complexity moves. Again, this affects the evolution of the texture, not the displacement. Complexity is all about how many noise passes are generated, same as part 1. Complexity is how many noise passes, gain is how high an opacity each noise layer has, and then subscaling tells us how big each noise layer is in comparison to each other. For additional information on the settings just described, please watch part 1 as those go into more details on each setting. Now for the new settings of the Turbulence node. Pinning tries to constrain the deformation within the original shape boundary. This tries to constrain the settings within the boundaries, as seen here. Seed also affects the texture, with it affecting the starting noise pattern of the first evolution of the effect. This is similar to changing the evolution, but the numbers aren't interchangeable. This setting is only available in the Turbulence node, so it's one I kind of want them to bring to the other so we can see directly what it's affecting. Finally, we get onto the most important option, our amount value. This tells Harmony exactly how much of the noise that is generated displaces our image. If we set it to our sinusoidal noise type, using the terrain fractal type, this means it's like a really strong dotted pattern as shown in the previous video. Within amount, we can modify just one of the X and Y displacement options, allowing us to easily see what's going on. If we keyframe just the X value to increase, and we ignore the dots for a second, it looks like the whole rectangle is being shifted in one direction. Then now focusing on the dots, you can see it looks like they're being shifted in the opposite direction. This is why those gaps in the texture form here, around this side, because they're being shifted in the opposite direction, and we have an extreme enough number for it to split up. So if it's pure black, it moves in the one direction, if it's pure white, it moves into the other. This means in the middle grey, it doesn't move at all, which is why if you recall from part 1, if we plugged a Turbulent noise node into our composite, it generated a complete grey screen. This is the same here. If no settings are formed, then it won't affect the image, as it's completely grey. It's that middle grey meaning it won't be affected or transformed at all. It won't have any displacement. If we set it to just standard fractional Brownian, you can see all the sides are nice and smooth, and they're all curved. Even within the texture, it's distorted rather than separated up, like our first example. This is because the grey areas of the noise only displace it a certain amount. The noise is nice and smooth, which is why displacement is nice and smooth. So as long as your amount value isn't high enough for it to displace it too much, it will look smooth. So you see, the more I increase this value, you can see it displaces even more. So if I set it to 500, 1000, 2000, you can see it's starting to displace too much. It's starting to displace so much that it's breaking up the image. So as long as this value isn't too high, it won't break up. It'll be a nice and smooth effect to the image. Okay, so that's the understanding of how the node works. This raises more questions, but given the foundational knowledge, we should be able to figure out roughly how each setting might affect the result. For instance, what about the complexity value? If we go to our Turbulent noise node, and look at this, and we go to fractional Brownian, and we increase our complexity value, it gives a lot more intricate detail. So if we put exactly the same settings into our gradient, you can see the noise is a lot more detailed because the noise texture is also more detailed. The displacement is a lot smaller and is more detailed with a higher complexity value. If the gain is put higher, you can see the image, the colours have been more crunched, meaning that there's more black and white areas than there are grey. So if we look at how it looks in our texture, you can see that's a lot more rough. It's not less smooth because there's less of that middle grey value that smooths it out. It's fairly hard to wrap your head around, but once you do, it all makes sense. So that's the settings explored inside of the Turbulence node. Now, to solidify that knowledge, the next episode will cover how to utilise this node within your workflow, and that will really solidify each setting and how it works and how to utilise it. So thanks for watching, like, subscribe, all of that YouTube stuff, and yeah, we'll see you in the next one where we explore the final part in the series of how to utilise this within your work.